U.S. airstrikes in Syria, Iraq, but Iran not bombed. Why? In response to the killing of 3 U.S. reservists by militias backed by Iran over the weekend, the U.S. has hit 85 targets in Iraq and Syria, and more will be hit soon. Critics quickly said that the Biden administration's reaction was too weak to stop further attacks. And besides that, what Biden is doing right now, just like trimming the grass without destroying the roots. And grass will grow back again soon for sure. Their point is valid. But the idea that bombing Iran is really sensitive and should be considered carefully. Too often people think that deterrence only means being tough enough. The bigger the threat or hit, the stronger the deterrent. It's not what you do that matters. What the other side is thinking is what matters. That means that your enemy is just as likely to step up their attacks as they are to step them down. It's better to know your opponent's interests, motives, and imperatives. Welcome to my new video. We discuss U.S. airstrikes in Syria, Iraq, but Iran not bombed. Why? Please help me to grow this channel by subscribing, commenting, showing it to your friends, and giving it a like. Now let's dive into this exciting topic. In Iran's case, the needs are clear, and keeping the government alive is the most important one. For the clerics in Tehran to give up after an American attack, they would have to think that their rule is more at risk if they fight back than if they look weak in front of a people who hate them. That's not at all clear. We also know that Ayatollah Ali Khamenei wants the US and Israel to leave the Middle East, so that Iran can become the main power in the area as he sees it. He has been telling the world this for decades. According to Tehran, it has made a lot of progress in this area, since the US did it a huge favor by invading Iraq and getting rid of Saddam Hussein. Hussein was a dictator whose Sunni-dominated government fought a hard war with Iran from 1981 to 1988. Another gift was how Israel and the US responded to Hamas's attack on Israel on October 7th. Saddam is gone and Shiite friends are now in charge of Baghdad. Iran's first goal is to get the US out of Iraq and take control of a neighbor that makes and sells more oil than Iran does. We're very close to making it work, even though they lost the 2021 elections to a combination of different ethnic groups and a government that leans toward the West. Iran and its allies took over a year later by controlling the Supreme Court and other institutions in Iraq, as Michael Knights and a team of observers in Iraq wrote for the Combating Terrorism Center at West Point. Groups backed by Iran have been busy since then, putting their own people in charge of intelligence, security, and other important services, as well as the oil ministry, which is very important for making money. Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani leads a group of mostly pro-Iran Shiite parties. Before Hamas set fire to the area on October 7th, he was getting ready to talk about getting the last U.S. troops out of Iraq. The main group that claimed credit for the drone attack on U.S. forces on January 28th at the border between Jordan and Syria is called Islamic Resistance in Iraq. Kataib Hezbollah is one of the Iraqi militias that is closest to Iran. Some of its fighters get paid by the government, and some of its commanders are in the popular mobilization forces, also known as Al-Hashd al-Shabi, which is a group of mostly pro-Iranian militias that are now part of the normal Iraqi military. It shouldn't be a surprise that the PMF, Popular Mobilization Forces, was one of the places the U.S. bombed on Friday, as the Iranian news service Tasnim said. In a way, it is like Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps training in Iraq. Iraqi groups that the U.S. views terrorist organizations are almost there. These groups are armed by Iran and work closely with it. The few thousand U.S. troops still in Iraq are naturally at risk in that situation, even more so than the few hundred in Syria. It is unrealistic to believe that Tehran and its allies will wait to use that edge until the U.S. is no longer there. Their effort only got stronger while the war in Gaza was going on. During this time, most of the world can see any violence against the U.S. or Israel as being for a good cause. There is no question that the attacks will continue after the current U.S. airstrikes end, or at a later date that works for Tehran, because they help achieve a major foreign policy goal for Iran. That makes it seem like the reasonable thing to do, to hit Iran directly. Some have used Operation Praying Mantis in 1988 as an example. That's when the U.S. Navy attacked Iranian oil platforms and Navy ships to stop them from laying sea mines after one hit and damaged a U.S. warship. That's a great example of when strong punishments have worked. However, that doesn't mean it would work now against a much stronger Iran and in a very different political sphere. Iran was tired from the war with Iraq in 1988 and really felt alone in the world. Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini saw the atheist Soviet Union, which was about to fall apart, as a lesser Satan because it was at war with nearby Afghanistan. China was poor and not in the Middle East, and Iran did not have an axis of resistance to use as a force multiplier abroad. The US, on the other hand, was almost at the peak of its power. Today, Iran has a big arsenal of drones and ballistic missiles, with ranges of at least 1,500 kilometers. They also have a sophisticated air defense system that has not been tested yet but looks good on paper. It has agents it can use in a possible battleground. That includes Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen in the south. Only in Western minds does it seem like it is cut off from the rest of the world. China has moved in to take the place of European investments, and Russia has become a key security partner by sending high-tech weapons and battle jets. The IRGC is trying to build an industrial and energy empire in Iraq that is bigger than the economies of Lebanon and Syria put together. This empire is worth $264 billion. Attacking Iran directly would be more likely to kill the US troops, who are out in the open in Iraq and Syria. Knight's study at West Point found that out of more than 160 attacks on US troops since October, only one killed someone. This is because many of them were just for show. That would be different if the gloves were taken off. Of course, the US still has a lot more power than Iran. If a war breaks out, this is why Tehran wants to avoid one. But it also knows that the US doesn't want to get involved in yet another major Middle Eastern war. For a deterrent strike to work, the Iranians would have to think that the US was ready to go all the way. The first thing the US needs to do to put Iran back in its place is either pull its troops out of Iraq and Syria or make them safer. There are other, less satisfying ways for the US to put pressure on the Iranian government through hacking, money, and other means. Even though they have tried for more than 40 years, it is still unclear whether they will be able to change its behavior. But they should be tried along with a steady campaign of airstrikes against Iran's allies in the area and a deal that sharply cut down on deaths in Gaza to take away Tehran's cover. That would be more likely to work than hitting Iran, and it would be much less likely to start a war that neither side can afford. However, in the worst case, airstrikes Iran is the only choice now. How do you think? The video for today has come to an end. We are grateful that you took the time to view this video. Remember to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of the most groundbreaking content. If you enjoyed watching this video, showing it to your friends, commenting, and giving it a like. Bye and have a nice day.